We do have an interesting scenario here on the GBPJPY. As we can see, in the last 2 years, price has continued to respect an array of trend line, as you can see on the chart. With a visual representation, we will have something that looks like this as price continue to respect that trend line going into um, last week trading session. And since price got to 170 area, we saw something that looks more like a retracement back into that trend line. And we want to be looking at what is going to be happening going forward. Considering the long-term bullish momentum on the GBPJPY, that is this momentum that has lasted over 2 years, we would want to look at how to take advantage of this pair going into the new week. First and first, we really need to have I identified price broke out of a structure during the course of March, and we saw something like this. Price broke out of that structure. If you look closely, we can see that bullish engulfing candle, which broke out of that structure mid March, after which we saw price do something like a retracement phase back into that trend line that was broken, and we can see a sharp rejection of that area during the early days of this month, after which we started seeing bullish candle going forward. Now, if we zoom closely into what has been happening in the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, last 11 weeks, what we will call our attention is that we definitely have seen an impulse leg, something like this. We saw an impulse leg. Then price appears to be doing what looks more like a retracement phase, which also rejected that bullish trend line. After which we might be looking for a reversal setup that will support a trend continuation to the upside. However, it is possible that we could have a breakdown of that trend line in the nearest future where price could do a retest to send price going down. But presently, with the current structure we have right now, we don't have any other thing to look for but to look for bullish momentum in this regard. So, with this being said, a major key level was identified at 155. I think 156 dollars area, 156 Japanese JPY. After which you saw that sharp rejection that happened, then price continued to find lower, lower high, higher lows. Now, with this scenario we have here, we need to go down to the daily time frame to see how we could take advantage of any momentum that could be unfolding before our highs. So now moving down to the daily time frame, the second thing I noticed was that we do had a key level around this area, which could probably be a neckline of the reversal pattern of of that that impulse leg we identified on the weekly time frame, and which looks more like this. We have a reversal pattern in the form that looks more like a head and shoulder pattern, after which we saw the breakdown of the neckline and price doing a retracement back into structure, where we started seeing consolidation phases in the last 10 days and this on this time frame. So now that we have this kind of scenario and we have a breakdown of a neckline around this area, sorry, give me a moment. We have a breakdown around this neckline. So for the sake of clarity, let us identify this area, these areas. So we have this neckline at at um, at 160 Japanese yen. Let's place this right at the right hand side. Give me a moment, please. This 315, I guess, will be okay. Good. So we have 350. We have this area. So this area, what I'll be using a purple because this is not a key level, but a neckline of the reversal pattern we identified earlier. So we have something like this. Now we have our key level right at 156 area. So now with the scenario we are having here, we don't know what's going to happen. Should price Is it possible that price will come back down one more time to now find that bullish momentum, or is it going to be an all outright downtrend continuation going into the new week? So now we still really need to get more insight into the structure, especially the one that happened in the last 10 days. As we can see, we saw consolidation phases around this area. We saw consolidation phases around this area. So we don't know how price is going to play out going into the new week. So if you allow me, let's go down to the 4 hours time frame where we could probably draw out trend lines that would hold the consolidation structure. And if we bring out our line chart, we do have something that looks like this. Price has been respecting that bearish trend line since the early part of this month. You can see our price has been respecting that trend line. And at the same time, also, we do have a bullish trend line here on the 4 hours time frame, which could be a guide for bullish momentum going into the new week. So this is the scenario we are having right now on this. So if we go back to our candle chart, we will have something that looks more like this. So now there are two ways to take advantage. There are two perspectives to this right now. So the first one that I'm looking out for is a possible breakout of this trend line, where we probably see a retest of the bearish trend line, or probably the retest of that bullish trend line we identified here, after which we look for structures that support a trend continuation to the upside. So that is one scenario I want to be looking at going into the new week. However, the other possible scenario that I'm looking out for is if we do have a breakdown of that bullish trend line, then a retest of the bearish trend line or the bullish trend line at the same time could evolve into a pattern that supports a trend continuation to the downside. So, in this regard, what I want to be looking for, the position I want to be having for any bullish momentum, is that we want to be using that neckline at 160 Japanese yen as a guide going into the new week. So if we do that after confirmation has happened, then we could be having a scenario that looks like this, where we have our stop loss right below the neckline here, with around like 100 pips thereabout, and we should have a take profit target of how much that is going to be. So what we are going to be looking at for is to look at the impulse leg. We project this impulse leg into the future, and what we'll be having will look more like this into the future. So to get a more specific figure, then we can bring out our Fibonacci extension tool and run it through that impulse leg and project a 127.2% extension of that impulse leg, which will definitely fall around this area. So that's around 174, 175 area. So if you allow me, let us place that 175 for the meantime. So if we have 175, definitely 175 will be around here. So we have something like this. So that is that for the GBPJPY. So mind you, this is a very very long term perspective to this, and once the trading session starts for the new week, I shall definitely do an update in this regard to see if we are still going to hold the take profit target or not. So now on the contrary, we have the possibility that price will continue to respect this bearish trend line going into the new week. And so if that is going to be, then definitely we want to see a breakdown of this bullish trend line first, after which we see a retest of that neckline at 160. which also shares a confluence with both the bearish trend line and the bullish trend line at the same time. After which, we're going to be looking for structures that support a trend continuation to the downside. So what this simply means at this point is that we want to be entering this bearish momentum after the breakdown of that bullish trend line, and then a confirmation that supports a trend continuation to the downside. So if that happens, then definitely we will be having a structure that looks like this with we have a short position that looks like this with a stop loss right above that neckline at around 85 90 pips thereabout. Then we will be looking for a take profit target at somewhere. What I want to do here is project this bearish trend line into the future to see what we could have at this point. So we could be having something like this going. So we should use this demand zone that has been respected in the past at around 152 area as a level to look out for our take profit target going into the new week if a bearish momentum finally comes into play. So we should be having around 151 area from a long-term perspective. We should be having something like this around 800 pips thereabout on this one. So at this point, I would like to pause the video here and let us see how price action plays out at the beginning of the week, probably the first 8 to 12 hours of of the um, of the new week will probably determine how far or what direction we shall be going thus far. Please note that regular updates will be shared in the comment section of my TradingView account for reference purposes. Thank you for watching and do have a wonderful day.